Welcome to Data Strategic Advantage channel.
Mm-hmm.
Our topic today is data modeling and design.
Okay.
You know, it's funny. We often talk about data as this valuable resource, this gold mine for businesses.
Yeah.
But raw data is kind of useless, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like having a mountain of Lego bricks without instructions.
Right.
You need a way to put them together to actually build something amazing.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And that's where data modeling comes in.
Okay.
It's the art and science of taking those raw data Lego bricks and figuring out how to structure them in a way that makes sense for your specific needs.
So it's not just about organizing data.
Right.
It's about organizing it with a purpose.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A good data model is like a blueprint for a building.
Okay.
It tells you what goes where, how different parts connect, and ultimately what the final structure will look like and how it will function.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this all fits together.
Yeah.
Well, let's zoom in a bit. What are some of the key concepts we need to grasp to really understand data modeling?
Well, imagine you're designing a database for a library.
Okay.
One of the most fundamental concepts is the idea of entities.
Okay.
Entities are basically the things we want to store information about. In our library example, our entities would be things like books, authors, and borrowers.
So entities are like the main characters in our data story, the nouns, if you will.
Exactly. And each entity has certain characteristics or attributes that describe it.
Okay.
For a book entity, attributes might include things like title, author, ISBN, and publication date.
So attributes are like the adjectives that give us more detail about our entities.
Precisely. And just like in a good story, we need to understand how our characters or entities relate to each other. This is where relationships come in.
Relationships,
Yeah.
like how a borrower can borrow multiple books or how a book can have multiple authors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And these relationships have specific rules or cardinality.
That define how many instances of one entity can be connected to another.
Okay.
For example, a book can have many borrowers, but a borrower can only borrow one copy of a specific book at a time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm seeing how cardinality helps us avoid some potentially messy situations.
Right.
But this is all getting pretty abstract.
Yeah.
Can we ground this in a real-world example to make it even clearer?
Sure. Let's take a social media platform.
Okay.
Our entities might be users, posts, and comments. Users have attributes like username, email, and profile picture.
Okay.
Posts have attributes like content, timestamp, and number of likes. And we can define relationships like users create posts and users comment on posts.
I'm starting to get a feel for how we can use these concepts to model all sorts of data, from libraries to social media.
Yeah.
It's like a powerful mental framework for making sense of the information around us.
It is. And once you start thinking in terms of entities, attributes, and relationships,
you'll see data modeling opportunities everywhere.
this is really helpful. So we've covered some key concepts, entities, attributes, relationships, cardinality.
Right.
But I'm curious, how do we actually design a data model?
Okay.
Where do we even start?
Well, it's a bit like planning a road trip.
Okay.
You wouldn't just hop in the car and start driving, right?
Right.
You'd first figure out your destination,
Uh-huh.
plan your route, and maybe even pack some snacks.
So before we even touch a database, we need a clear plan of attack.
Exactly. The first step is to define your scope and objectives.
Okay.
What specific problem are you trying to solve with this data model?
Uh-huh.
What questions do you need to answer?
Okay.
Are you building a new system, integrating existing data, or something else entirely?
So it's like having a mission statement for our data model, a clear understanding of the why behind it.
Exactly. And once you have that clear objective,
Okay.
you need to gather requirements,
Uh-huh.
talk to the people who will actually use the data.
Right.
What information is critical to their work?
Uh-huh.
What questions do they need to answer?
Okay.
What format do they need the data in?
So it's like conducting user research, but for data.
Yeah.
We need to understand the needs and expectations of our data consumers.
Precisely.
Okay.
You're building this beta model for them, so their input is crucial.
Uh-huh.
And finally, before you start sketching out your model,
Okay.
you need to establish some standards.
Standards.
Yeah, like,
Think of it like creating a style guide for your data.
okay.
You need to define things like naming conventions,
Okay.
modeling notation, and definition guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
Consistency is key.
Yeah.
Having clear standards from the outset will save you countless headaches down the road.
So it's about setting clear rules of the road to ensure everyone is speaking the same language and working from the same playbook.
Exactly.
Okay.
Standards help make your model easier to understand, maintain, and evolve over time.
They also ensure that everyone involved in the project is on the same page.
This is all incredibly helpful. We've covered some key concepts.
Right.
The importance of planning, and even the need for standards.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, once we have a data model sketched out,
Okay.
how do we know if it's actually any good?
Yeah.
How do we evaluate it and make sure it's meeting our needs? Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll delve deeper into data model evaluation.
Right. Evaluating a data model, it's like test driving a car. You can read all the specs and admire the design, but you won't really know how it handles until you take it for a spin.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So what are we looking for on our data model test drive? What are the key criteria for a truly effective model?
First and foremost, readability.
Okay.
A well-organized model is like a well-written book, easy to follow, understand, and even enjoyable to navigate. You should be able to look at it and quickly grasp the key entities, attributes, and relationships.
So readability is about clarity and visual appeal.
Yeah.
We want a model that's not only technically sound, but also aesthetically pleasing.
Exactly. A well-designed model is like a beautiful map. It guides you effortlessly through the data landscape.
Yeah.
And this is crucial, especially in collaborative environments where multiple people might be working with the model.
Makes sense. What else should we be checking under the hood?
Completeness is another crucial factor.
Okay.
Does the model capture all the essential entities, attributes, and relationships to truly meet the business needs we defined earlier?
So it's like making sure we haven't forgotten to pack anything essential for our data road trip.
Precisely. If the model is incomplete, it's like trying to bake a cake without all the ingredients. It just won't turn out right.
Okay, readability and completeness. Check and check what's next on our evaluation checklist.
Accuracy is another key consideration.
Okay.
Do the data types and constraints we've defined actually ensure data integrity? Are we preventing invalid values from sneaking into our database?
This is where we put on our detective hats and look for potential data quality gremlins, right?
Exactly. Think of it like setting up security checkpoints at our data borders. For instance, if we have an age attribute, we want to make sure it only accepts numerical values within a reasonable range. No one should be 200 years old.
Right.
Or if we have an email attribute, we might use constraints to enforce a specific format.
So accuracy is about building quality control right into the model itself, preventing bad data from even getting in the door.
You got it. And last but not least, we need to consider performance.
Okay.
Will this model allow us to retrieve and manipulate data efficiently, or will every query feel like driving through rush hour traffic?
So even if a model looks beautiful and captures all the right information, it could still be a dud if it's sluggish and inefficient.
Absolutely. Performance is critical, especially when dealing with large volumes of data.
Yeah.
We need to consider things like indexing, query optimization, and even the physical storage of the data.
This evaluation checklist is fantastic. It's like having a set of diagnostic tools to ensure our data model is running smoothly.
And remember, evaluating a model isn't a one-time event.
Right.
It's an ongoing process. As business requirements change and new data sources emerge, you'll need to revisit your model and make adjustments. Think of it like regular car maintenance. A little tune-up now and then keeps everything running smoothly.
That's a great point. So we've designed our model, we've evaluated it. What's next? How do we actually bring this thing to life?
Well, there are two key processes involved, forward engineering and reverse engineering. Forward engineering is like taking our beautifully crafted blueprint and using it to build the actual structure.
Okay.
We take our model and translate it into a format that a specific database system can understand.
So we're specifying tables, columns, date types, and all those nitty-gritty details that the database needs to actually store and manage the data.
Precisely. It's like going from architect to construction worker, taking that high-level design and turning it into concrete reality.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, what about reverse engineering? When will we use that?
Reverse engineering is essentially the opposite of forward engineering. It's like trying to figure out how a building was constructed by carefully examining its structure. We start with an existing database and try to extract a data model from it.
So if we encounter a database that doesn't have a clear data model, maybe a legacy system or something poorly documented,
Right.
we can use reverse engineering to understand how it's put together and create a model from it.
Exactly. It's like doing an archaeological dig of our data, uncovering the hidden structures and relationships.
This is incredibly helpful. We've covered a lot of ground, from defining key concepts to planning a model, evaluating its effectiveness, and even understanding the processes of forward and reverse engineering.
And through all of this, we've seen how crucial a well-designed data model is for any organization that wants to effectively leverage its data.
I feel like I have a much deeper appreciation for the power of data modeling and the many pitfalls to avoid along the way.
Absolutely. Data modeling is both an art and a science, and it's a constantly evolving field. But with a solid grasp of the fundamentals we've discussed today, you'll be well equipped to navigate this fascinating world.
This has been a fantastic deep dive into data modeling and design, but there's always more to learn, right? Stay tuned for part 3, where we'll explore some common pitfalls to avoid and share some final thoughts on this incredible field. As we've been talking about all these data modeling best practices, I can't help but wonder about the flip side. What are some common mistakes people make?
Yeah,
What are the data modeling danger zones we need to avoid?
that's a great question. Data modeling can be tricky, and there are definitely some common pitfalls that can trip people up. One of the biggest mistakes is failing to truly understand the business requirements.
So even with all the technical know-how in the world,
Yeah.
we can still stumble if we don't have a crystal clear grasp of what the data model is actually supposed to achieve.
Absolutely. A data model that's not aligned with the business needs is like a beautiful ship without a rudder. It might look impressive, but it's not going to get you where you need to go.
Right.
You need to invest the time up front to truly understand the problem you're trying to solve with this data model.
Okay, so business alignment is crucial. Got it. What other traps should we be watching out for?
Another common mistake is trying to model everything.
Yeah.
It's tempting to try to capture every single detail and relationship,
Right.
but that can quickly lead to an overly complex and unwieldy model.
So it's about finding the sweet spot between comprehensiveness and simplicity.
Right.
We want a model that's detailed enough to be useful,
Yeah.
but not so complex that it becomes a burden.
Exactly. It's like packing for that road trip. You want to bring everything you need, but you don't want to overload the car.
Right.
Focus on the essential elements and avoid getting bogged down in unnecessary detail. Remember, a good data model is one that's both accurate and easy to understand.
Right. Avoid the data baggage. Are there any other packing tips we should keep in mind?
Another pitfall is failing to engage stakeholders throughout the process. Data modeling shouldn't happen in a vacuum. You need to involve the people who will actually be using the data,
Right.
get their feedback early and often, and make sure the model truly meets their needs.
So it's about collaboration and communication,
Yeah.
making sure everyone is on the same page,
Right.
and that the model reflects a shared understanding of the data and its purpose.
Precisely, a data model that's been developed in isolation without input from stakeholders is likely to miss the mark. It's like planning that road trip without consulting your travel companions. You might end up somewhere no one wants to be.
This is all incredibly helpful. It's like having a roadmap that not only shows us the best route, but also warns us about potential detours and hazards. Understanding the pitfalls is just as important as understanding the best practices.
Absolutely. And remember, data modeling is an iterative process. You're not going to get it perfect on the first try. Be prepared to make adjustments, revise your model, and incorporate feedback along the way. It's like fine-tuning your car's engine. A little tweaking here and there can make a huge difference in performance.
This has been a fantastic deep dive into the world of data modeling and design. We've explored different modeling approaches, discussed best practices for design and evaluation, and even uncovered some common pitfalls to avoid.
It's been a pleasure sharing this journey with you.
Likewise.
And remember, data modeling is a powerful tool that can unlock incredible insights and drive business success.
Yeah.
But it all starts with a solid understanding of the fundamentals and a willingness to adapt and evolve as your needs change.
I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for the power and importance of data modeling. It's not just about technical expertise, it's about understanding the business, collaborating effectively, and ultimately using data to tell a compelling story.
Exactly. And as we become increasingly reliant on data to make decisions and drive innovation, the role of the data modeler will only become more critical. It's an exciting field to be a part of.
It really is. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into data modeling and design. Don't forget to subscribe, and don't hesitate to tell us in the comments what topics are important for you.